We go into McDonald's and we see a 75-year-old little grandma clearing trays, and there's just something in our heart that hurts. We say, it should be like that. They shouldn't have to work when they're at that age. But something happened where maybe the savings were lost, or maybe never acquired in the first place, and he said, oh, that was just so much work. That's sad. Now, hopefully you can do the philanthropy kind of things, to leverage your time and your money toward where you want to, not have to clear trays. So you see what I'm saying? You might remember a song by Alanis Morissette called Ironic. Just think about a couple of these phrases as you think about the nature of time. An old man turned 98, he won the lottery, and what happened? Died the next day. There's this random line. It's a black wine or Chardonnay. It's a death row pardon. Sing it, Mandy. 2 minutes too late, and isn't it ironic? Now, we're not going to sing the whole song, but just think about this phrase too. It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride when you've already paid. It's the good advice you just didn't take. Okay. Wow. Exactly. It's meeting the man of my dreams and then his beautiful wife. It's all about timing, isn't it? Okay, now here's the thing. We have understandings of the right time. That's the kairos. But unfortunately, many of us are just passing time. And there's a different Greek word for that. You'll see it also in your outline. The Greek word for that is chronos. And we are chronology from that, which is just a set order of events. It's like flipping pages on the calendar. It's the passing of time. It's the unfolding of the days and the season. That's chronos. And a lot of us get stuck not thinking about the right time or a season of opportunity. We just kind of get stuck passing time. I want to talk to you in a minute about how that might happen, but let me just have you think this way. Have you ever talked to someone, maybe they're playing solitaire, they're playing a card game, or a computer game, maybe they're doing a puzzle, maybe some men might be tinkering out in the garage or out in the garden or something, and you say, what are you doing? And they say, I'm just filling time. Right? Just kind of making the day go by a little bit more. And that's what happens to us. A lot of times we get stuck in chronos. We get stuck just filling time or passing time. As sand in the hourglass are what? The days of our lives. That's culture, right? That's chronos. The sand in the hourglass, just kind of going grain by grain until your last grain of sand drops down through that and it's over. And some people, that's all they understand about life. Now, for some people, I think that's all they ever knew. They didn't know any differently. They never had a life view or a view of themselves or their spirituality or God or purpose that takes them beyond that. It was never modeled for them. They never experienced anything different. I think for other people, it's something that in time happens to them. Maybe they started out with an understanding of life and possibilities and seasons of opportunity, and then something happened, and maybe they lost one of those things we identified. They lost a spouse, or they lost a child, or they lost their savings, and in the process, they lost this important thing called hope. My mom's sister, my Aunt Edna, passed away in August. She was one of my favorite aunts. And I went back to Seward, Nebraska, a little town outside of Lincoln. And I was a pallbearer just in August, and went back there for that. And my Uncle Les, I kind of watched him during the funeral. I thought, this man's really going to struggle. They had just both turned 90. And my aunt was 74 when she got married for the first time. They had 16 years together. And they thought, even if we got 5 years together, we had 16 great years. We really loved each other, but now she passed away. And so about 3 weeks later, I was back kind of passing through Seward, and I said, yeah, I should really look up on Blessed. And so they recently moved to this retirement kind of a little apartment complex. And I got directions to it, looked him up. And I found his little room, I saw his name on the door, and I knocked on the door, and immediately I could hear his voice, said, told me to come in. And I walked in the room, and immediately I'm in the main room. And there was one prominent feature of this room. And that was 2 easy chairs. Kind of big, overstuffed, kind of lazy boy things. One of them was empty. And he was sitting, he was just sitting. And you could say he was breathing. He was filling the time. Waiting until he could go to bed for that day. Now, I don't in any way know what it's like to lose somebody that you should be like. And I don't in any way want to judge him for his grieving. But I do believe that somewhere in there, there's this important thing called hope that is in jeopardy right now in this life. See, I believe that God brought Christmas for people who ran out of hope. I think God brought Christmas for people who have experienced not just the joys of life, but also the disappointments of life. I think God brought Christmas for people who are longing for something, and who are lonely, and who are missing maybe the love that they once knew, or that they hope to find in this life. See, God fills time. And He fills time in a very different way than we do. We kind of go from page to page on the calendar. We go from store to store during the Christmas season. We go from party to party. We fill time in that way. Kind of this aimless, sometimes purposeless wandering. God fills time in a very different way. I want you to open your Bibles tonight to one passage in the New Testament. If you would find the book of Galatians. All right, and while you find that one, there's another passage we're going to put on screen here. It's from the book of Numbers. And that one's going to just kind of introduce this concept of time. But there's some Bibles in the boxes there. If you're going to grab one of those. But almost to the back of the New Testament, I've only got about that many pages left in my Bible after the book of Galatians. So I'll give you a minute to find that. But I want you to think about how God fills time. Now, certainly, when I say God fills time, you might think about His eternal qualities. The fact that He fills time. Right? There's no period of time in history, either that's already passed or that will take place in some future time, that God has not been or will not be. You can think about His quality of filling all space. We sometimes call this omnipresent. We say God fills time that way. And yet, God fills time in a different way than what we do. This prophecy was from the Old Testament, the book of Numbers, chapter 24. It is, I see Him, but not now. I behold Him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob, and a scepter will rise out of Israel. These words were actually spoken before Israel went into the Promised Land. Remember, Moses takes them out of Egypt, and they have this period of wandering. This is even before they land where they're going to land. And this prophecy is spoken. And what this is saying is that there is a reality in God's plan that is no different because the time has not passed. This is just as real. He's talking about the anointed one. We talked about the King of the anointed one, the Christ, a couple weeks ago. And he says, I know that God is in action right now. But there's a season of opportunity. There's this appointed time. There's this kairos, this right time in which that's going to happen. But does it make the reality of God any less? No. I see Him, but not now. I behold Him, it's just not near. God is acting. And that's the first thing that God fills time with. First of all, it's an action. Now look at this Galatians passage, chapter 4. All right, we're going to look at verses 4 and 5. And notice that, but when the set time, or your translation might say the right time, that Greek word that's translated that way is the word kairos. When the kairos had fully come. When the appointed time, just the perfect time came, God sent His Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. See, God fills time with action, but He also fills time with purpose. As I said, a lot of times what we fill time with is the aimless stuff. God's not aimless at all in this. He has a very set purpose. At the right time, God did what? He sent His Son so that we might receive adoption as a son. That was His intention to do it. And then the last thing He fills it with is power. We might say, hey, I'm going to do this or that. Maybe we do it, maybe we don't. God has a set purpose, but He also has power. He's able to do it. And so history tells us that in fact, in time, this little boy Jesus was delivered to a man named Joseph, who was married in a place called Bethlehem. The completion of all those prophecies have been made done. And the result of that is this. Look at verse 6. Because you are His sons, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer slaves, but God's children. And since you are His children, He has made you also heirs, which means you will receive the inheritance.